Hey guys, it's Greg-tastic here, and today marks a special day. Why is that? Because the R3 processors, the Ryzen processors, were finally, it was kind of like a staggered release. The R7s came out, then the R5s came out, and now the R3 came out today. And before I get into that, let me just say I'm not a fanboy of AMD. I would buy Intel or NVIDIA if they fit my needs or my price point, my needs and my wants for my price point. Actually, I do have. When I built my computer over a year ago, before Ryzen was out, I built it with a Core i5. And my other computer, the one that I have hooked up to my TV, has a 1050 Ti. I have nothing against NVIDIA or Intel, but what I do dislike is when you have a market that has very little competition in it. And I dislike that because I'm not someone who has tons of money to buy the latest stuff all the time. And usually, no matter what industry it is, more competition is better for the end consumer. So when Verizon and AT&T were dominating the cell phone market, or not cell phone market, but the coverage or the carrier market, and Sprint and T-Mobile couldn't really compete, they were able to do whatever they want. Now you see T-Mobile, Sprint, they're all on the same level, and all of a sudden you could go and get an affordable cell phone contract. Same thing with the CPUs and the GPUs. If only Intel is making good CPUs, it allows them to overprice them and sell them, basically I think Intel CPUs the past few years for the progress they've made and what you get are overpriced. And AMD making CPUs that can compete with Intel, not beat Intel, but compete with them, is very good for the market, the end consumer. More options are always better, even if one option is not as good as the other. As long as they're somewhat close, it's better. That's, kind of, I live in the United States, and that's kind of, we got Pepsi and Coke, there's always two brands that go together, to at least two brands to drive each other, so that one brand doesn't get comfortable and say, hey, we're the only people making this, and we're the only one giving you a quality product, which means we could do whatever we want. So getting into what happened today, the R3 processors came out, and reviews were released for them, and basically it's the same story as every other processor in the Ryzen lineup. Since they're all the same chip, technically, just binned, to bend or whatever, cores disabled, I don't know, it just seems like they're all the same chip and some of them just aren't as good, and those get turned into R5s or R3s, whereas Intel seems to have like a little different way of doing it. But with the AMD chips, it seems like every chip, whether it could support 4 cores or 8 or whatever, 4 or 8, 4, 6, or 8, I should say, it seems like they all overclock to the same, like 3.7 to 4.12 gigahertz, depending on what processor you're talking about. They all overclock pretty much to the same area. So whether you're buying an R3 or an R7, when you talk about clock speed, there's not much of a difference. The difference comes in the cores and the threads and the cache in the R3. But basically what the R3 did is, if you watch these reviews, at stock, it easily beats the Intel Pentiums, which it should. It's more expensive than them, even with the price hike for, some of them, because they have multi-threading. But it also beats a lot of i3s. And then when you overclock it, it actually beats the 7500, which is a $200 chip, if my memory serves me correctly, in a lot of games and benchmarks. So we're talking about a $110 chip or a $130 chip that is beating a $200 Intel chip. And this is good for the market, because now people who are looking to, I did a video consoles versus PC the other day, and I said the G4560 is a good budget chip to use, but it's kind of limiting to buy a chip now in 2017 that's 2 cores, even if it does have hyper-threading. Now you're looking at for around $100, and I'm sure these are going to go on sale eventually soon, and I'm sure they're going to be bundled with motherboards, and then the price is going to get even lower. For around $100 to $130, you could get a 4-core chip that is going to perform pretty damn well in games, and this is a big deal. And what I like about this is now AMD is officially competing with Intel on all fronts. And what I like about, or not necessarily like about their strategy, but what I noticed about this strategy is everybody wanted Ryzen to be this CPU that was going to match Intel's chips or beat Intel's chips. And obviously AMD knew that they couldn't do that. And what I like about their strategy and why it's disruptive is instead of saying, let's match Intel or beat Intel, because obviously they couldn't, technologically speaking, they just couldn't do that pound for pound. They couldn't create a 7700K. You could argue how the chips perform, but they don't have, that chip. They have something different. So what they kind of did is rather than attacking everything head on, they kind of said, okay, well, here's our 8-core chips, and they're not going to perform as good as Intel's chips, but they're way cheaper and you get way more cores and way more threads. And the same thing with the 6. And now with the 4 cores starting to come out, the R5 4 cores and the R3 4 cores coming out, it's like, no, it doesn't. If you could buy 7600K instead of R3 or R5, you would probably be happier with the performance, but they don't attack the 7600K like, hey, we're better than you. They attack it like, do you really want to spend $80 to $100 more for a chip that is going to have minimal gains over what we're giving you? And it's really smart. Rather than attacking Intel head on, they kind of just slipped all their chips in between the gaps. They said, all right, the 1200 and the 1300X, we'll kind of put them in between the i3 and the i5 performance. And now you could feel like you're almost getting i5 performance for prices that are less than an i3 for the most case. Same thing with the R5, the 6-core chips. They're like, okay, we're not going to be able to take on the i7, so let's give you kind of similar performance, and we'll give you 6 cores. And Intel's not selling anything at 6 or 8 cores that's close to what Ryzen is giving you. So I just kind of like their strategy of, they kind of knew off the bat, all right, these processors aren't going to compete with Intel head on, so let's make them valuable in different ways. And to me, it's really awesome. Like, if you want to build a computer for under $500, now you could go and get a true 4-core processor for $110 in the 1200 that could most likely, you'd be better suited overclocking it. And you could overclock that thing on stock cooler to 3.6 or 3.7 gigahertz most likely and have no problem. Some people have been saying that 3.9 is too high for the stock cooler, but I'm sure you could take the stock cooler and clock that to 3.6 gigahertz, and now you have a processor that is going to play games at a very acceptable rate and not cost you a fortune. And I just think it's really awesome. I am, like I said, I don't want to come out and say I'm an AMD fanboy, because I'm not. I root for AMD because I think their practices are a lot better than Intel's. I think their stuff is cheaper. I think the technology that they have, like FreeSync and stuff like that, is cheaper, and it helps consumers a lot. But I root for them because I want there to be multiple companies producing quality products that we have to choose from. And I'm looking forward. I'll probably stick with Ryzen just because of like my emotional attachment to it, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Intel kind of comes back down to earth and either A, gives us better processors in the next couple of years, or B, lowers the prices a little bit more to like a reasonable rate where they're kind of getting a little closer to the Ryzen prices. Because like I said, if Intel, when like Ryzen can't beat Intel pound for pound, where they beat them is dollar for dollar. You get better value with the chips, and it's not like you get little better value, you get a lot of better value. That really makes it worth it. So I'm really happy that all three of the Ryzen lines have come out now, and I feel like AMD is really giving it to Intel, which is good for all of us, because even if you're an Intel fanboy, now you can get your processors hopefully cheaper soon, or see some more improvements in the processor from generation to generation than what we've been getting. Hopefully Vega comes out and do something similar in the next couple of days, but I don't have high hopes for that. But guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.